There are 71% of Black women that are obtaining their graduate degree, that's their master's degree. There is 65% of women obtaining their postgraduate degree, which is a doctorate degree academically, not just an honorary doctorate, but going to get it academically. So that means what? Sisters are back in school full time. Not only that, but Black women are overrepresented in what? In the healthcare industry. And guess what industry they're getting the degrees in, y'all? We're getting our degrees in law, health, and hold on, the last one is what I love, public policy, which means we are revving up to do what? Run for office. So Black women are starting to have a different agenda, and we are starting to apply ourselves and not just make it a conversation piece. And so it may look like we have less employment, but we're also setting ourselves up to have much more of a future than we would have ever had in the past. Black women are also starting to have kids in their 40s versus back in the day. There was a big, I don't want to say epidemic, but epidemic of Black women having kids in their teenage years, which was then, not allowing them to go on and create this future. So being that they are having kids later, that means what? They're becoming more career driven. We are career driven women who are saying we will create and build before we go and have a family so that our kids are born into equity and not into deficit. I am proud of us sisters. Go sisters, go Black women. I see you, I love you, and I am you, and I appreciate it.
Women are creating a future of leadership, opportunity, and empowerment.
Hey, to that sentiment, I say, good luck with that shit. I understand the whole building thing, but we've been going over this for the last couple of weeks. I don't understand why it is that Black women are taught that having a man, having a family is going to be a hindrance to their lives, when everybody else sees it as an asset, a benefit. This is why you see the epidemic of them being single. I didn't hear her mention any of the stats of, the lowest marriage rates, period, or anything like that. She didn't mention any of that part. She's just talking about how, they're having women later. People don't understand how expensive those procedures are, and it's not practical for your average person. So there probably is a subset of women who will be successful at that, but it's absolutely nothing realistic to aim for. I think it's silly for that to and then you have to also think about it. Once women are of that age, once you start waiting around until your 40s, your pool shrinkens, right? And it's for two reasons, because women of that status tend to be annoying when it comes to dating. It is what it is. And secondly, they become less desirable. It's no secret that women fall off after a while. Men do too, but if you look at the numbers, after 35, you're talking about a lot of issues. It's not a good look. It's a really stupid philosophy. And if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do that. But I think it's shameful for us to encourage Black women on a path that's destined to fail, extremely likely to fail. I didn't hear any numbers about success rates from her, and there's a reason for that.
I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that a part of the reason that a lot of women feel like that is their first and foremost priority is just based on the way we were raised as kids. A lot of times in the Black household, whether you're raised in a two-parent home, actually, I feel like it's kind of a little bit more prevalent if you're raised in a two-parent home than it is if you're raised in a single mother home. Little girls are told, like, don't worry about a boy. You don't need a boy. Don't get distracted by a boy. Go to school, go to school, go to school. And culturally speaking, we push that narrative on our children, and men protect their daughters so harshly from other men throughout their entire adolescence. And then when those little girls grow up, we have the same men turning around and looking at their wives and saying, like, well, why aren't I your first priority? But it's because a man also told her, don't make a man your first priority. Make your career your first priority. And I'm not trying to necessarily place blame, but I think what happens in that particular aspect is men are kind of talking out of both sides of their mouths because they don't ever think that their little girls are going to grow up and be somebody's wife, and you don't see your wife as somebody's little girl, but they're synonymous. With that being said, I think a woman that goes to college and puts her career first also is super important. Um, it's great to be goal oriented and driven. And I don't understand why, particularly, it's only a bad thing when a woman is that. I think that a lot of times we as a people have spent um, time saying, okay, we would like to be looked at fairly and equally, right? So then a conversation started a few years ago about, well, what do women bring to the table? So then a bunch of women started saying, let me go get some stuff to bring to the table since the men are telling us, what do we bring to the table? And then women started saying, well, now I bring a PhD, I bring a bachelor's, I bring a car, I bring a house. And then men started saying, that doesn't matter. That's not what we're looking at you for. That's not what's important. Why is it only important when a man has it? It should be just as important for a little girl to be able to aspire and see herself on the television and see herself in politics and see herself in tech as it is for a young Black boy to see himself in all of those spaces. We should not do what I believe other cultures do to us, which is move the goalpost once we have achieved something. If another culture shouldn't do that to a Black man, why should a Black man do that to a Black woman? Thank you.
Okay, so my opinions are not very popular, especially among women. I feel like it's a generational thing for me because I'm Gen X, so I look at things completely different. I don't feel like I think women put a lot of focus on their careers and education and all those things, and I think that's a beautiful thing if that's what you want to do. But I think they're doing it for themselves. You know, it's and then they wait till later in life to try to have children. And I have friends now that have doctorates and they waited so late to have children. Now they can't have children and they're very upset about it. And I think that it's okay if you want to be career driven. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't hear me say that. But I think it needs to be balanced. Like, you know, still, if you want to be a mother or a wife, some people don't want to be a mother or wife, but if you want to be a mother or wife, you need to start looking into that sooner than in your 40s because it's a very selfish thing to want to become a mother at 40 when your quality of life is different. You're not going to want to chase behind children that late in life. You think you will, but you won't. You have to be a mother to know that. And you know, I know, ladies, I don't know how you feel about this, but men really don't care about your degrees and stuff because it's a lot of women that say, I'm educated, I'm beautiful, I got a nice body, all this stuff, and he go and choose this woman over me. And men are really choosing the woman that bring them peace, right? And I'm not a pick me. I know women, as soon as you say something that's contrary to what women believe, they call you a pick me. But that's not what I am. I'm just a realist. And I understand that our education is important, but it's mostly important to us. It's not important to other people. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever you do, do for you. It's not for the man. It's not for, you know, any of that stuff. That's what you do for yourself, you know. And I'll expound on that later as we go into the conversation, but I'll land right there.
When she was talking, she didn't say like, "Oh, us ladies, we're waiting later to get married and start families." She said, we're having our babies at 40 and bringing them into not legacy." She said something about not deficit, but something other, the other word, I don't know. But anyway, she said we're bringing them into something good instead of bringing them into deficit. Where did the men come in? She didn't talk anything about men. She's talking about Black women's only, as if Black women's are the entire community. But when it comes to having children later, I think it is a good thing that people are having their children a little bit later. But 40 is way too late to start having children. If you're blessed to have many children throughout your 20s, 30s, and you end up having more babies in your 40s, that's one thing. But starting your family at 40 is a huge risk. You don't even know if you're going to have proper children. And then you're starting at that age. You only have like 1 or 2 years in your 40s that you can. It's silly. It's very silly. But anyway, the other thing is the Lashia, she said that What did she say? She said so much. She said something about, hold on. I'm trying to remember. She said it was good, and why do women kind of get put down for doing the same thing men do? Why is it good when men do it, but it's seen as a negative when women do it? The reason why that conversation is so detrimental is because when men were asking women about this table thing, they only said that when women said that they were equal. Because men never really expected women to show up as men. Men expected women to show up as women. And when women heard, what do you bring to the table? What makes you equal? They started listing off masculine things that made them equal to the men. You are not showing up as a woman. You're showing up as a woman trying to be a man, and you'll never succeed. You'll never do men better than men do. And the reason why it doesn't matter when women do it is because men are supposed to be the leaders of the family. The men don't really give a damn if you know how to go out there and be a hustler, or you can wake up earlier than them and get out there. It doesn't really matter, because a man is looking for something else out of you, something else that you don't know. This is something that you have no idea about, and he's looking for it, and you don't even know what he's looking for.
I hear what she's saying, but the stats just don't support that. That many Black women aren't graduating with degrees. They're just not. And I just tried to look it up again. It's like 38%. Maybe she's saying 70% of that 38% are going on to graduate in higher education. But the last I checked, it wasn't high like that. As far as when did having an education become a bad thing? Now, I do think if you weaponize your education, that's totally different. But a group of people who down people getting educated, I mean, people have ceremonies when kids graduate. But for whatever reason, for us, it's like, oh, you graduated. It's a bad thing. Like how education solely was the one thing that kept us in slavery for 400 years. You guys are crazy. Like, it's something to be happy for. Something, now using it and thinking that you can down talk somebody because they don't have an education, that's something totally different. But we live in America. Wake up, you guys. You want to work at Walmart? Do you want to work at McDonald's? You have to, unfortunately, get an education if you want a decent job, especially as a woman, because they're not hiring female welders. They're not hiring female, they may, but you want to be competitive. It's not enough to just be a high school graduate anymore. That may work in other countries, but it does not work here. Now, if you want to talk about relationships, that's totally different. I can say you can do both. There are people who are educated who focus on their home. Some people find their husbands in college. So one doesn't have to X out the other one. Does that make any sense? And some men do want their women. And, back in the day, you had to go to college to be well-versed to even get a man of a certain stature, right? Because he wanted you to be well-versed. He wanted you to be he wanted you to handle his brand well. He wanted you to be as the mom of his children. He wanted you to be educated because that trickles down to his children, right? So this whole thing, oh, you're educated, you're the enemy. No, it's what you're doing with your education that makes you make it the way it is. It's not the education itself. Now, if you get an education like, oh, I don't want to be with men because I have this education, that's not happening. Because guess what? People still having kids. I don't know what y'all talking about, people waiting to 40. Because the last I heard, we had a single mom problem in our community. Okay, they're not waiting. It's people out here, they with mates. They're not getting married, but they are with someone. It's not people out here saying, oh, I don't want to be in a relationship with anybody. It's situationships. It's all kind of ships going on, but it ain't no single ships. They may say they're single because they're not committed, but they're with somebody. So it's a lot of romantic activity going on. People ain't just out here being virgins until they're 40.